In this video, we will look at literal equations. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to solve literal equations or formulas for a given variable. A literal equation is an equation in which variables represent known values. There can be many letters when we solve literal equations. For these examples, we're going to solve each equation for the stated variable. So let's look at number 1. We want to read the directions. It says solve for y. So in this equation, we want to get y by itself. By the end of the equation, we want it to say y equals. So let's look at how we can do that. We see we have 3x minus 4y equals 7. I know negative 4 is close to my y here. I want to look at my 3x first. I have a positive 3x, which means I want to subtract 3x from both sides. And my inverse property says that my 3x's will cancel out. On my left side now, I'm left with negative 4y equals, and we notice here we have a 7 and a negative 3x. These are not like terms. We cannot just subtract them. All we need to do is simply write them. Negative 3x plus 7. The last thing we're going to want to do is divide both sides by negative 4 to try and get y by itself. My inverse property says that my negative 4's will cancel, and I get y equals. Here, see, we're at the goal that we wanted to, y equals. Now I have negative 3x over negative 4, so a negative and a negative will leave me with a positive 3/4 x. And positive 7 over negative 4, I can't divide that, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction, negative 7 over 4. And that is my equation solved for y. At the end of it, it says y equals, and my equation is now rearranged in that format. Let's look at another example. The circumference of a circle has the following formula. Solve for the radius r. So we notice here we're told what variable we're looking at. So our equation here says c equals 2 pi r. We want to get r by itself. The end of our equation should say r equals. So I look at what I have, c equals 2. Now notice here, if we see no symbols, remember that means multiplication. 2 times pi times r. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 pi. Inverse property says that those will cancel. And I will divide both sides by 2 pi, because what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So now I'm left with c over 2 pi is equal to, I'm just left here with r. We wanted to say r equals, so our symmetric property says we can flip them. C over 2 pi. R is equal to c over 2 pi, or the radius of a circle is equal to the circumference divided by 2 pi. Let's look at one more example. Number 4, solve for m. So notice here, what's different about this one is we have 2 m's. But this should look familiar from our last unit when we had variables on both sides of the equation. So we're going to solve this similarly. So I want to get my m's on the same side. So I'm going to subtract m from both sides of my equation. Remember that just an m there's an invisible 1. So 2m minus 1m, these are like terms, so I'm going to combine them, gives me 1m. I still have my minus t is equal to, inverse property says that those cancel, equals 5. Lastly, to get my m by itself, I have a minus t here, so I'm going to add t to both sides. My t's will cancel. And 1 times m, identity property is just m, equals 5 and t are not like terms. 5 does not have a t, so I cannot add them together. I just simply write 5 plus t. And I have now solved for m. M is equal to 5 plus t. We've reached the end of the video. Please take your notes to class and we will continue to do more examples together.